Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
It's Monday, September 24th, 2019, and this is episode 181 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me tonight, reviewing the second to the last week of the Giants baseball season as we head into this last week. It's a little melancholy for us. I know it is, and probably a lot of you guys out there are getting a little sad too. I mean, we get excited for playoff baseball, but when the Giants aren't in it, and they're just playing out the string, it's a little hard to get up for games, but there's reasons to, and we're going to talk about it tonight. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Bum and Posey smacked me right into that, hey, these are my Giants mode tonight, because they've both homered. So they've made it for a kind of a peachy night down here in Georgia. You know, feeling good. Giants are up 3-1. You know, last homestand of the season. They got Bochy to 2,000. So, like you said, it's riding out the string. But at least we've got some fun stuff to talk about from the last week, and stuff to look forward to with Bochy. You know, and his retirement after this season. So I'm looking forward to this last homestand, and just Giants baseball in general. I'm gonna miss it, but you know, this was a fun season, so I don't mind where they're at right now. It'd be nice to be in a race, but you know, it could be worse. They could be the Rockies.
That's true. Who they're playing tonight? They're in the bottom of the third right now. I know most of you podcast listeners, the game's already over. You know the future. You know if they won or lost. But here's a little pick me up. Here's Buster Posey's home run in the bottom of the first.
High drive. Down the line, left field, out of here. Buster Posey, number 7, and the Giants take the lead.
And you know what? He crushed it. And what's really interesting is Eric told me something as we started the pre-show, or as we were ending the pre-show, something very interesting about Buster Posey's home run record this year. What is that, Eric?
That was Buster's first home run at Oracle Park this season.
Yeah, I just, that kind of blew my mind. It was only his 7th home run this year, but at the same time I thought, well, no, surely he has one at home, right? No, I looked it up on Baseball Reference, and all 6 prior to tonight were on the road. In fact, here it is in order: at Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Milwaukee, Colorado, and Philadelphia.
Literally all hitters' parks. None of those are hard parks to hit in. So it's kind of weird that he actually did hit one at Oracle. Every one of those parks is a hitter's park.
And he hasn't hit one since July 31st. Now, last year, he did exceed last year's total of a modest 5. Ironically, he hit 4 of his 5 at home. So only 1 on the road, and that was at Colorado last year. So, but, you know, looking at years prior in 2017, he hit 3 at home and 9 on the road. In 2016, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the road and 7 at home. So that was actually split. 2015, most of them were on the road. So this is, of course, when he was hitting, 15 to 25 home runs a year. So, this is the problem with AT&T Park, or Oracle Park. But we know that Buster Posey can hit them at home. And then Madison Bumgarner, just as I was about to hit record on the show, Eric exclaimed that Bum hit a home run. So I quickly turned on KNBR, and sure enough, he launched one. So that's pretty cool. I'll take that.
Yeah, right. He's been trying. The way he's been swinging for the last few months, he's really been trying to get that swing back and hit the one. And he's been close lately. So it's kind of neat. I don't have the stat in front of me, but Buster and Bumgarner homering in the same game. That has to be a rarity at this point. Mm-hmm. All I probably have to do is go back and look at the games that Bumgarner homered in. And it's possible the last time they did it was when they both hit grand slams in the same game. So it's nice to kick off the homestand. I really appreciate Bochy put out his best team tonight. He put out Dick, Pilar, Yaz in the outfield. He put Longo, Crawford, Dubon, Belt across the infield, Posey behind the plate. He gave Bum his team one last time. Granted the outfield has been a rotation, but that's his infield basically, Dubon being the new guy. And, I appreciate Bochy doing that. I wish more fans were at the game tonight because, winding down Bochy's run here as Giants manager, it's just nice to see him take everything seriously and not just, I don't want to say, having fun with it because he is having fun with it, but he's competing and he doesn't care what the team's records are. So it's fun to have the old Giants back, to have our stars. Now we need a Crawford home run and maybe like a Belt double, and we'll complete the whole cycle here tonight.
And then Timmy was just added to the roster an hour ago, and he'll come out and close out the game.
Please.
I know. We'll talk about that in a little bit with Sunday's festivities. But the Giants, let's review the week a little bit, game by game in a little bit. But in summary, the Giants did take 2 out of 3 in Boston, and they lost 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. So they went 3-3 on the road trip. So like you just said, they finished above 500 on the road at 42-39. And I think that's pretty incredible because really only the playoff teams have winning road records. If it wasn't for the Giants' futility at home, the Giants would absolutely be a playoff team this year. So it's very frustrating because Oracle, or formerly known as AT&T or Pac-Bell or whatever you want to call it, has typically and historically been to their advantage. And this year and a couple years past, it just has not. It's been their Achilles heel. And we've talked about this. We don't need to get in the weeds about how it's getting into their minds and the home run problems and all that stuff like that. But, I just wish if they had the typical home field advantage. Playing above 500 on the road is spectacular for any team to do. And you cannot say the Giants stink. I mean, I know Dodger fans say, the Giants stink. Yeah, Dodgers are better. There's no question about it. But if you play 81 games on the road and you win most of those games, you're a pretty good team.
Yeah, the Dodgers themselves have only won. They're 41-34 because they're on the road this week to finish the season, and the Giants won 42 games, like you said. So, LA will only be a game or two better than them on the road. All playoff teams are the teams that have better records than them on the road this season, and it's really strange to look back and think that the Giants were kind of that close to being in a playoff spot. The margin is those 5 extra games at home. I mean, if you think about it right now, they're 11.5 back of the wild card. So you give them those 5 games, and maybe they're 6.5 back, not 6.5 back. Then you give them those 5 games, you cut it down, they're like a game and a half back of the wild card is what it basically turns into because their losses turn into wins. It's a 2-game swing for every one of them. And just a handful of games would have done that, and they'd still be competing right now, and they'd be just on the heels of Milwaukee and giving it a shot, which is – more than we expected. It's frustrating when you hear about it. I saw Larry Baer, and I shared it on our Twitter. Larry Baer said for next year that they are going to move the bullpens, but they might not be taking Triple's alley away. And I'm curious if, that is the case, or if Larry Baer's just talking out of his ass at this point. There's really no other way to say it, because I know he's connected, but he doesn't represent the Giants' interests anymore publicly. So you have to take what he says with a grain of salt. What he's saying is more what's being talked about in the boardroom, not necessarily their official position, I guess is what I'm getting at. So, to think that maybe they could have swung that around and had a 5-game difference at home, they would be competing right now. It's so crazy to see the other teams with winning road records this year, and it literally is the playoff teams. Houston, the Yankees, Minnesota, they have the same. Oakland, they have the same road record as Oakland. Teams like Boston, granted they're out of it, but they're a winning team this season. Mm-hmm. They have a better road record than the St. Louis Cardinals, who are going to win their division. So, it's a testament, though, to Bochy, too, and the team. It really shows you that the team likes each other, and they've had a band of brothers mentality this season. That they're playing for the guy next to them if they're winning on the road a lot, because that's all you have to play for. Your family and friends aren't there. All you got is the guy next to you. So, it's a shame. But coming in now, they're under 500 at home. They need to go 3-3 to tie 1984 for the worst home record of all time. They have to go 4-2 to avoid that. And if they go 2-4, Yeah, if they go 3-3, it's a razor thin margin.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably going to tie 84 for the worst home record of all time. 2-4, they'll have the worst all time, and like I said, 4-2, they'll barely eke it out. So they kind of are playing for something this week, even though it's not going to reflect in the final standings.
Right. So is that all-time franchise history or San Francisco history?
All-time franchise history.
All-time franchise history. Now,
But
okay, by
the
winning
162
percentage, I
schedule.
assume. Yeah, by the 162 schedule, exactly. Which
Right.
that didn't get instituted until 1954 or whatever.
61, yeah.
Or 61. Sorry. Yeah. So that would be unfortunate. I mean, we're talking about some very feudal teams in Giants history, especially 1984, and where they lost over 100 games, and to exceed that in the worst home record ever, that just speaks volumes to how good they were on the road, like you just mentioned. That is not pure chance, Eric. It's not, especially given their one-run record and their ability to win these very close, razor-thin margin, tipping point games. There definitely is something going on at Oracle with their mindset. I mean, I have no other way to explain it. We talked about it last episode. But like you said, Larry Baer was interviewed by Hank Schulman, and I encourage you to check out the podcast. I listened to a little bit of it. I admit I would need to go back and do a deeper dive. But he was on KMBR today summarizing that podcast and conversation with Larry Baer. It's one of the few times he spoke publicly since he's come back from his suspension from baseball. And he's done some personal things, and he's done a lot of counseling to try and be a better person. We can kind of gloss over all of that. But when it comes to the actual park, he was asked, hey, look, is there going to be changes to the dimensions next year? Well, there's been so much backlash, not as much about Triples Alley, because that's kind of a home park thing. But as far as the league is concerned, they really want to get rid of those bullpens down the sidelines. And it's hurt the Giants before. It's hurt other players. It definitely hurt a couple players this year. It's a safety thing, and a lot of the players don't like it. And I understand. I personally, as a fan, like not having nets down the side and like having bullpens down the foul lines. That's if I filled the stands. If Chad King was in every seat of the stands. And I have to take into account and exclude my selfishness because as a fan, I sit there with a glove. I pay attention to the game. I wait for those foul balls. I love watching the bullpen warm up. The pitchers warm, and you're 10 feet away from the guy warming up or 10 feet away from the catcher. You're hearing that pop. You're hearing the whiz of the ball. There's that visceral experience that I remember as a kid and all the way through up till now as an adult that I can never forget. And to have that removed is unfortunate. And granted, yes, there are stadiums you can go sit in the center field bleachers and get a little bit of that because you're somewhat close to the bullpen, but it's not the same as sitting in a second row 10 feet in front of, Tim Lincecum warming up before a game or, anyone who's going to come in and close, who's throwing heat. It's just, I remember watching Brian Wilson warm up, and it was a joy to watch him warm up. I mean, he's not even playing the game. It was fun to watch him practice. I mean, like, what the heck? But anyway, long story short, Larry Baer said those are probably gone next year. Now, the obvious conclusion is they're going to wall off Triples Alley and put the pens there. He said, no, that's not going to happen. I'm paraphrasing. I know I haven't heard the whole thing. But essentially, Hank said, no. He's basically said there's going to be some minor tweaks at Triples Alley. But ownership loves Triples so much, they don't want to drastically change Triples Alley. So it didn't sound like there was going to be enough room for bullpen mounds out there. And I myself, I think I'm going to do this for a TortureCast article. I'm going to go into Google Earth or my ArcGIS. I do a lot of GIS or geography for my job, so I know how to do this mapping stuff, is to foot for foot take the bullpen mounds and extract them and try to place them in Triples Alley and see what kind of dimensions you have to play with to close it off. Like, what's the minimal distance you have to close off Triples Alley if that's where you wanted to put them? And this is, of course, like not extending the brick wall out into the walkway, right? Other architectural changes, engineering changes that have to take place. Because I'm sure that in itself would be way too expensive. They're not going to move out the wall or move out the walkway.
Not a huge brick wall like that. They'd shift around those other walls.
They can shift seats. They can shift interior walls. They're not shifting exterior walls. So anyway, play with those dimensions. I think it would be a fun exercise to say, hey, how crazy can we get with some of our ideas? Can we put the bullpen mound across the street at Momo's and have them walk across the street? How about put them where the little mini park used to be by the glove? Put them in the glove, I don't know, or the bottle. Have them slide down the slide like the Milwaukee Brewers mascot, and then come into the game. Big slide down the stands. I don't know.
Put them on the other side of the cove. Well,
yeah,
I think from
floating pens.
Bear,
floating
right?
pens in McCovey
Put a barge
Cove.
out there. I think from I didn't listen to the whole thing, but from Bear, what I'm gathering is that Giants garden might be gone, and center field might be the place that they look to do this. They might shift the dimensions a little by bringing the wall in. I think the green wall that goes across center field to the bricks. Mm-hmm. I could see them bringing that in slightly. But they, like you said, they seem enamored with Triples Alley. So that's the best place I can see. Wrigley, I grew up going to Wrigley. So like you, I grew up, I used to sit, watch players warm up. That's where I got Mike Bielecki's autograph, was in the bullpen.
Bielecki, yeah.
It was a thing, and as a kid, you could watch them warm up. But for safety's sake, it's got to get out of the way. One of my best baseball memories is watching Pedro Martinez at a White Sox game in the bullpen. The bar was right over the bullpen, and I could stand there and watch him, and I could just hear that.
Yeah, I love hearing that.
Oh, my God. And, I don't want that taken away. So if they do move the bullpens out there, I hope they don't pull a Cubs where they put them underneath, and the only way they can be seen is when they dance for a homer. I hope they put them out there like Philly and all those things. I could see stacking them, something like that. Maybe tiering them in center field where the Giants garden is a possibility. You just can't go high enough to impede the batter's eye. So you have stuff to play with your program. That
was asked. So Tom Tolbert and company asked Hank today that precise question. What about the garden? And Hank said, no. Larry gave no indication of that. And by the way, the garden is one of the few Major League Baseball park features ever announced by a sitting president of the United States. So he's like, I don't think that's going away at all anytime soon. And I'm not saying Hank is right, and I'm not saying that because Obama announced this or talked about it and Michelle visited it, that's the reason it's going to stay. I'm just telling you the opinion of Hank Schulman, who knows more than I do. Anyway,
that's crazy.
But I agree with you. Physically speaking, it is absolutely a target place to go. I love the garden. I think it's a really cool place to go hang out. You can't watch the game from there. It's all on monitors, right? You're behind the center field fence. But it's plenty big enough to put two bullpens, and they could just jog out of the center field fence, just like a lot of stadiums. So, I mean, that's totally – and the fans and the bleachers on the left and right can still see. So that's totally legitimate place to put it. And you're right. If they don't close off Triples Alley, maybe that is. Let's sacrifice the garden. How much money is it really making us? Who cares that Obama talked about it? It doesn't matter anymore. They're not coming to the games anyway.
But I totally can see management thinking that way. And you got to imagine Farhan feels like I do right this second. He'd be looking at them like, what?
Like, what? I know. That was 10 years ago. Who cares?
Right? I mean, that's cool and all. Put up a plaque. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Things change, right? I know. Right? I totally agree with you. It's like, he didn't eat here, right? He's fine.
Right. Did he plant the garden himself? Yeah. No? All right.
Is this Obama's kale? I mean, come on. Who cares?
Thanks, Obama.
So yeah. Anyway, wow, worst home record potentially if they don't go 3-3 or better.
3-3. No, 3-3 ties it.
And so they got a 4-2 to beat it.
They got to have a winning record just to avoid it.
That is awful.
They're not helping themselves tonight. They're tied 3-3 after Ian Desmond hit one to the garden.
Oh no! I was about to check. Oh, and speaking of the garden, he hit homer to the garden, huh?
Yes, right as we were talking about, I swear to you, a ball landed in the garden. It was very, very amusing.
There it is, 3-3. The Rockies have 4 hits. The Giants have 2 solo. Shouldn't say 2 solo shots. Posey hit a 2-run home run. All right, so it's 3-3 in the middle of the 4th inning. So Bumgarner, we'll talk about him a little bit. He has been struggling, I'd say, a little bit down the stretch. It's kind of unfortunate. I thought he was going to finish the season strong, and it's not been going that way because he had a really good stretch from really the end of June, definitely July and into August. And since then, he's kind of tanked. At this point, he's actually threatening finishing the season with an ERA above 4. That's not good. So anyway.
He is back over 200 innings for the first time since what was this, 19? So since 2016.
Yeah, no, he's back on the horse, which is good. So the Giants are 75-81, 6 games under 500. Of course, this week they were officially eliminated from postseason contention, but we knew that for the last 2 weeks. Bochy did make it to 2,000, thank God. And then, of course, finishing into that game, Johnny Cueto, God bless Johnny Cueto, he actually videotaped Bruce Bochy's speech as he came in. I have it somewhere here. Here we go. As he came into the Giants dugout. So here we go. We have about 90 seconds of the Giants chanting Bochy's name and then Bochy talking. So here it is.
2,000 games in my career as a manager in Major League Baseball, and that's an awesome accomplishment. Maybe we'll never see it again in our lifetime. Boch, congratulations.
The whole bottle?
Yeah, hey, no, thank y'all very much. One, for making this an easy game. Shark, unbelievable job.
Yeah, Shark.
You know, it's a number, and I don't know what the number means. I think a couple of things. I've been blessed that I've been doing this as long as I've been doing it, but it's a number that all of you are part of. And trust me, I'm writing it back to you guys. You know, I look at the support from ownership, front office, but you know, the players and coaching staff, you know, Bress and his team. I can't thank you guys enough, and hopefully, when y'all look at this number, you know you're part of it because you are. It's what that number is. So it doesn't happen without you guys. Again, thank y'all so much, man. This means a lot to me, and you know, I'm not going to get emotional here, but it's not what was on my mind. I swear to you, this year it was more us getting there, and for you guys to do what you did in July and get back in this thing, for this to happen, I can't thank you enough. Thank you. All right.
So, nice, humble speech by Bruce Bochy. That's the man he is. I know he said he wasn't thinking about 2000 all year. He obviously knew about it and probably wanted it, but, you know, he's definitely not the type to stand up with a base saying, I am the greatest. So, a really cool speech by Bochy.
Yeah, you notice he turned it around on the guys halfway through. He's like, you're all a part of it. And that's just how Bochy is. And it was, you know, you're right. He's a liar if he says he wasn't thinking about it. But to be fair to him, he knew that if these guys got in the race, he would get there. So I think that was more what in the back of his mind. Like he said to himself, okay, if the pieces fall into place, then they can fall into place. Let's try to get this. And if we don't get that, at least I'll have this. And he does. He's the 11th manager in the history of Major League Baseball to win 2,000 games and all 10 ahead of him, including one who's in the booth right now, Joe Torre. All 10 ahead of them are in the Hall of Fame.
So he clinched number 2,000 on the second game of the series against Boston, in which they won. They also won game 1, 7-6. And now this was a really, really tough game. Oh, you know what? I should go back. I should talk about this real quick. We were talking about, we're going to do a week review in just a second. I got ahead of myself. So first of all, when they finished the Atlanta series, they flew home, and everybody on the flight, including press and friends and family and everyone who was associated, they all got 8 1/8 sized caps with the number 15 on the front. No matter how small their head was, everybody got the same size hat as Bruce Bochy, 8 8. It was awesome. So there were people saying everyone looked like bobbleheads because they were walking around and the hats were just like shaking back and forth. It was great. And they all got T-shirts saying thanks, Boch, with that iconic graphic they've been using where he's tipping his cap. And it was really cool. So there was great shots in front of the plane, the Delta plane out of Atlanta, of Bochy in his, casual business clothes, surrounded by everyone, players, managers, coaches, personnel, everybody in those T-shirts and hats. So it was really cool. They had the fire trucks fire the water cannons on their departure. And so it was a really cool sight. I mean, this guy really is beloved by not just Giants fans and Giants staff and Giants players, but, really most of baseball loves this guy. He is not a controversial guy. He's not one you could easily hate. He's a very respected manager across the board. And so it's really, really cool because I admit when he was hired in 2007, after Felipe Alou left, I had my doubts because, he was a longtime Padre. And why the hell did the Giants hire this guy? What the hell is he going to do? And boy, how little did I know that in 3 years he was going to deliver the first championship to San Francisco and then 2 more after that. So, and just his demeanor, his charisma, his class, the way he handles his players, and the way he handles the press. He's very respectful. Every time I've ever talked to him and asked him questions, he answers me in the same way he answers the guys he actually knows. He handles his players with delicate gloves, but also is hard with them behind the scenes, as many reporters have noted. He really is, in my opinion, one of the most perfect managers that there could be. And in this era of analytics and a little bit of Billy Ball, which of course has been around for almost 20 years now, he does still use analytics, and he's using it more and more in his day-to-day life, but he's still one of the prototypical old-school managers who's still open to analytics. But he's a dying breed, and I don't think we're going to see a manager like him ever again, donning the black and orange.
Yeah, there was a story that came out last week about how Madison Bumgarner, late in games, will sidle up next to Bochy. And because Bumgarner reads swings really well, Bochy will talk to Bumgarner about who he thinks is a good fit for that situation, which one of the Giants pinch hitters might fare the best against the pitcher who's out there throwing. And those are the kinds of things that analytics can't necessarily tell you. That just comes from the feel of being a ball player and knowing that he trusts somebody like Bumgarner. And the joke that Bochy made was, if I go with Bumgarner's move and, he's right, that's fantastic. And if he's wrong, at least I can blame him, So, just to have the wherewithal to do that, I don't think that kind of thing happens as often. I don't necessarily see in many other dugouts players going up and hanging out with their manager. I watch a lot of Cubs games, and I do see it in Chicago, but I don't see it in Milwaukee. I don't see it in St. Louis. I don't see it in San Diego. Well, San Diego doesn't matter. He's been fired. I don't see it in Colorado when he might be fired. You don't see things like that, and it shows you that Bochy connects with these guys on a different level than just being a boss. He's that perfect blend of father figure management type where he's going to chew your ass out, but you can go to him if you've got something going on. And even if I'm talking personal life, baseball life, something going on, I'm sure that these guys have all felt like they can go to Bochy. And, it's really been his team. As much as the Giants have had talent, they're not like, the Dodgers or the Astros of recent years, the Yankees of recent years. They're not laden with a ton of talent. And a guy like Bochy makes a difference in that case. Casey Stengel used to be called a push-button manager because when he won all his titles with the Yankees, all he had to do was plug in all the holes with all those superstars, and they'd go off and win. Bochy could never be accused of being the same thing.
God, no.
He is a push-button manager in the sense that he manipulates the buttons to do what he wants them to do. And I feel like just about every other week where he's showing a game, we'll talk about Tuesday's game in a minute. Another example of Bochy, he used the rules to his advantage and used the pitching matchups that he wanted to use, and he didn't care what anybody had, to say about it. And he stayed true to him and was willing to learn. And, I'm just grateful as a Giants fan that he was our manager. I don't think they win 3 titles without him. I don't think they win even 1 title without him, to be honest with you.
No, I agree.
2012 may have been their most talented year, but who knows if Buster and Bumgarner would be playing the same way in 2012 for a guy like Don Mattingly as opposed to a guy like Bruce Bochy. So
well, I think that's the irony of it is, and we'll gush over Bochy certainly after the season review because he'll be done as manager, and it's really going to hit us, I think, at that point emotionally. But I think you're right. I think 2012, no doubt, was their most talented team of the 3 teams, but it was also the most adversarial run they've had and the most improbable run they had.
Yeah.
Despite the 7th game of the Royals World Series, obviously that in a microcosm was insane, but they weren't down by 5 runs. They weren't down in the series like 3-1. It was just a tough back and forth matchup, and Madison Bumgarner shut them down, and it was an epic game. 2012, they were down twice, 2-0 to Cincinnati. By the way, going back to Cincinnati for 3, they lost the first 2 games at home when they were flipped at the time. It's totally different now. It's 2-2-1, but back then it was 2-3. So the Giants or the Reds had the advantage, so that they started in San Francisco. They lost the first 2 games at home. I guess this is kind of a microcosm of 2019, by the way. They go back,
Yeah, it is.
and they win 3 in a row in Cincinnati, and then of course they're down 3-1 to St. Louis, and same thing, they win 3 in a row and do that thing. So of course they swept the Tigers, whom they were just dreaded underdogs. Like
Not only all of that.
Everyone picked the Tigers. Like no one picked the Giants, and they swept them.
We don't matter. Not only all that, they had to fade a Melky Cabrera suspension in early August after the trade deadline. Melky Cabrera got suspended for the rest of the season for performance-enhancing drugs. And the team had to pull together at that point, and that's when they went on their run. So It was like adversity is what they thrived on that year. But I'm not sure, and this is probably what you're getting at, any other manager, they're not going to do those things. They're not going to come back like that.
Not only the run after Melky's suspension, but then, being down 2-0, which, of course, the Reverend helped with that. But, Bruce was definitely a part of that inspirational thing. And then, of course, Cincinnati or the St. Louis series. I mean, everything just worked out so well. I agree with you. I don't think they win one. I don't think they win one World Series if they had a different manager heading into every playoffs. Even if you could replace Bochy. Bochy gets him to the playoffs. You replace him with Joe Torre. You replace him with, Casey Stengel. You replace him, I don't think they win all 3 for sure. And maybe not even one. Because he just pulled the right strings every single time. So, all right, moving on. We were talking about the Garden, and this is actually a good tie-in before we get into the week in review. And a cool shout-out, by the way, to Eric in a second. We've been working with a company called Sports Hosts, and they're actually really, really cool. I'm going to go experience their product, if you will, their experience, tomorrow night, actually, as the Giants play the Rockies on Wednesday night at Oracle Park. So they've invited me out. We've been talking, me and the West Coast head of operations here. This company basically brings out knowledgeable Giants fans as hosts. Think of them as your tour guide, your local tour guide, and other people who are mostly visitors come into a city. A lot of foreigners, too, come in and go, hey, I want to check out a baseball game. I want to check out a Giants game. I need someone to show me around. So these hosts will invite people, they'll sign up, they'll show up, complete strangers, and they'll get together, and the host will show them around town before the game. Go to their local drinking hole or restaurant or whatever. Get them into the park, show them, hey, this is where you should go before a game. This is where you should go before first pitch. Hey, let's check out batting practice. These are cool seats. I like the cha-cha bowls, whatever. It's all local flavor, and it depends on the host that you have. And then, of course, post-game, who knows what the hell happens. That's all to be written later. So it's a really cool idea that they have called sportshost.com. So they've invited me out to a pregame party in which they have periodically where they invite their hosts and their attendees to kind of mingle and meet each other and talk Giants baseball and other things. So I'm going to go out there tomorrow. They have loved the podcast so far. Michael Barrett, who's the head of operations here on the West Coast, he is from Australia. Great accent, by the way. And he has a cricket background, and he loves baseball now, and he loves the Giants. So I'm going to be out there tomorrow night, and Sports Host is actually offering a special discount. Tickets in the bleachers are just $9, and that ticket also gets you 20% off food and drinks in the Garden, which maybe won't exist next year. I don't know.
Take advantage now.
So exactly. So it starts at 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow night. So if you happen to be hearing this either late Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning, of course, I've put this out on social media anyway, you can RSVP at www.sportshosts.us/host-RSVP. You just Google Sports Host and you can go get the information. But I'll be out there at 5 o'clock with some business cards and just ready to have a couple drinks and mingle with Michael and the hosts and Giants fans and whoever else is going to be out there. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. They've been very good for us. They've been promoting our product. We're promoting theirs. And I do think it's a very novel idea to get people who some are very familiar with the sport of baseball and are just visiting from other cities and would love a host to show them around. I mean, I know I myself, when I visited, Boston or other cities, I've had friends oftentimes who lived in those cities, pick me up and show me around the park and show me the local haunts and eats and everything like that. The only difference is that, this is a stranger, but they're willing to show you around. So they have that kind of motivation. And I think you could get a lot out of that, as opposed to just showing up by yourself at Oracle Park for the first time going, I have no idea where to go. So I think it's a really, really cool idea. So check them out. Anyway.
As somebody who traveled to Oracle for my first time a few years back, I didn't know where to go. The difference was, though, I had a press pass, so I could go anywhere I wanted.
That's right.
And I could just figure it out on my own. It's plus $9 tickets. I'm telling you, I'm watching the game tonight. There's nobody in the bleachers.
No, that's the problem, right? I mean, obviously Oh, by the way, Sports Host has an official partnership with the San Francisco Giants. So, this is not like an outside third party trying to get in. They actually absolutely have an ironclad agreement with the Giants. So the Giants are actually promoting Sports Hosts from inside the park.
Yeah, the Sport Hosts tweet promoting our thing tomorrow was liked by the Giants Twitter account. So they are.
Well, that's new. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Right, so they are an official partner, and shout out to Sport Hosts for making us their official podcast of the San Francisco Giants.
They did. They made us their official podcast, which is really, really cool. So we're like 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from the Giants. But we're not official podcast of the Giants. We like to think we are, but we're not. I will be there.
Still will not take my call.
I'll be there tomorrow night in capacity of being and mingling at this party, but I also have press credentials tomorrow night. So I think it's going to depend on how the night goes. I'm going to try and get there early enough to conduct some pregame interviews if possible, attend BP. I really want to hear Bochy's pregame presser one last time, because this will be my last game that I attend this year. So I really am doing that for mostly personal reasons, but certainly to bring that information to you. But I'll be bouncing probably back and forth, the press box and that, and then certainly covering the game afterwards. So look for any kind of nuggets that I will be delivering tomorrow night and post-game. Now, we had a great shout-out by the Sports Hosts, and San Francisco Giants liked their tweet. Holy crap, Eric! A couple days ago, I saw this, and I was like, really? And that's awesome. So why don't you talk about what happened with you and Hunter Pence?
I'm going to turn us into buddies. I was watching a Rangers game. I had music going, and Hunter flashed on the screen. So I waved at him because I can't help it. I love Hunter Pence. You love Hunter Pence. Giants fans love Hunter Pence. I don't care that I'm a 40-year-old man. I can say that. And Hunter was on the screen, and I waved at him. So got me thinking, and I tweeted, does anybody else wave at the screen when Hunter Pence comes on the broadcast? And I put a little gif of a kid waving, looking all sheepish. And I woke up the next morning, and Hunter had replied with a Forrest Gump waving from Lieutenant Dan Shrimp Boat with a hi back to me. And
that was so cool.
It was so unexpected. So I'm going to turn us into waving buddies. I figure give it another day or two, I'm going to wave back at him and see if we can get this thing going where Hunter and I just wave to each other every now and then. And he becomes my waving buddy. Because he is actually one of the players I've met, was nice and all that. But, I love Hunter. And Hunter's always interacting with fans and stuff like that on the Twitters. And it was fun that he totally got the vein of what I was saying. And he came back with his own fun. Hi, I see you.
I thought that was so cool because I've had the chance to interview Hunter 3 or 4 times, and I've talked to him about video games, puppies, baseball, of course, amongst other things. He is a man of many disciplines, and that's why I love the guy, because baseball is his passion. And if you haven't seen the Pence effect or the Hunter effect, what is it called on Fox Sports? I can't remember.
The Pence method?
The Pence method. Yeah, maybe that's it. I watched it. It's about 35 minutes or whatever, and it profiles his transformation after he was not released, but he was a free agent, and he went down to play fall ball and all that with the Toros, and then getting signed by the Rangers and making the team, and then eventually making the All-Star team. It's a great video. I highly encourage you guys, just Google the Pence method.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun watch, and you just really get a good sense of the man that he is. And even though baseball is his life, it's not 100% of his life. But he's so focused on his health and his well-being, and he's 36 years old, and he's like, I know I can still play baseball. I know I can. I just did it very well a year ago. Why? And I feel just as good as I did physically. So he changed some things about his swing, and he obviously has had an incredible year. He is a candidate for comeback player of the year, and he was an all-star. Now, he's had injury issues this year, unfortunately, and I think that's going to curb his realistic shot at comeback player of the year. But that said, what he's accomplished this year exceeded anyone's expectations. Anyone and everyone, except for maybe him and his wife, Alexis. I honestly, I'm the biggest Hunter Pence fan there is. I had no idea this was in him. I mean, did you?
No, not at all. I didn't think he'd do what he did. And it was so important to us as a household that every week I write out the weekly schedule for games on my whiteboard in my office. And it lists, in blue, it'll say 7:05 at St. Louis for the Cubs. In orange, it'll say 9:45 versus Rockies for the Giants. And then in red all year, I had 8:40 versus Oakland. And I had the Rangers games up all year just because of Hunter Pence. Yeah. Because it was just a marvel to watch him and tune in when we could. And I actually haven't gotten the chance to watch the Pence method yet. I missed it when it was on, and then it recorded funny. So I saw that it was on YouTube. The wife's a big fan of his too. She interacts with Lexi. She's one of Lexi's top fans. He's a guy that we love to have in our life in this household. So it's fun that, to get a shout out from him. That's why I say I want to make him my waving buddy so that he and I have like a thing. So even when he's out of baseball, I can have a thing with Hunter.
I've also interacted with him on Twitch. So he, in the off season, this last off season, he does Twitch all the time in the off season. I don't know what is going to happen this year, of course. But he plays a lot of video games and streams them, and he has a few hundred people watching him at the same time or whatever. And so I've interacted with him several times. He doesn't know who I am, of course. He just thinks I'm some rando. But just asking him questions, and he'll answer and what have you. So, yeah, I encourage everyone to kind of follow him, follow his social media, his streaming habits, which are very few and far between during the season, which does happen once in a blue moon. But certainly off-season he does. The Pence method, though, to see a multimillionaire who is a former all-star, not a former all-star, he is an all-star this year, but I've meant prior to this year. The way to any of us, if we played in those leagues, Eric, we couldn't foul a ball off, but to him, it was a huge step down, and he sucked it up. These are where, unproven rookies go, or guys who are washing out at 24 years old who don't want to be a checker at Kroger's want to go, right, to revive their careers. Not 36-year-old former All-Stars. That is not where these guys go, and he did.
And the guys on the Dominican team, the Toros, and we'll move on from Hunter Pence. They did. They talked about he was part of the reason they won the championship because he helped make them believe in themselves. And he was just that guy. And he actually had to leave them before they finished the championship up. Did. But they really credited him, and that's why Hunter Pence is, that's why this is now the Hunter Pence cast.
Some of the clips of him though, super white Hunter Pence trying to speak Spanish and like bond with some of these Latin players down there is freaking hilarious and slightly uncomfortable. But he doesn't give a S. He just goes. He just is like, oh, bro, what do you want? Oh, wait, what are you saying? Oh, yeah, no. Like, he tries so hard to communicate with like a 22-year-old Dominican kid who has $3 to his name. I mean, it's incredible, like the effort he puts in, not just physically, but mentally and socially. And it just made me love him so much more. It's a great little documentary. But you're right. This isn't the Hunter Pence episode. Let's get into the weekend review.
Well, I was going to say,
we can't help it. We do this. We love these guys.
We love them. Trevor Story just homered for the Rockies. It's now 4-3 Rockies. That is Story's sixth straight game versus the Giants with a home run. It is a major league record. No other player has hit a home run against one team in 6 straight games. So at least they're losing with for a limited time.
Oh, that's a commercial. Never mind.
At least they're losing with style. So.
Losing with style. Well, we were just saying about Madison Bumgarner not closing out the year too well. Anyway, all right, let's look at the weekend review. Tuesday was Yaz Day. Of course, this was the return of Mike Yastrzemski to Boston as the grandson of the great Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski, the Red Sox, eternal Red Sox. Now, this is a game that was very, very interesting. The Giants actually were up in this game 5-1. Much thanks to, of course, this play that happened with, to be honest, Eric, let's think about this. We have 3 games with Mike Yastrzemski at Fenway Park. He's sitting on home run number 19. What are the chances he's going to hit home run number 20 in the very first game with his grandfather watching?
I didn't expect it.
Game. Leading off for the Giants, the left fielder, number 5, Mike Yastrzemski.
And what a thrill for this young guy. See if Yastrzemski gets a fastball here that he can hit. He does. High into center field. It is out of here. Unbelievable. Number 20 here at Fenway Park for Mike Yastrzemski.
And just about everybody is standing up for Mike Yastrzemski. Wow. What a cool moment that is. To straightaway center field.
Oh, the emotions he must be feeling right now. He's trying to keep the poker face. He's trying to keep it. I think I'll be easy. Look at Boats. Team picture in the dugout. High-fiving in the stands. That is awesome.
Fly to center field deep. Going back, Jackie Bradley looking up, and it is gone. Yastrzemski takes it out of Fenway. His 20th home run of the season. A standing ovation at Fenway Park.
That's pretty cool.
This is really special.
Wow.
I know that it plays all of those clips there from the Giants broadcasters to the National and the Red Sox broadcasters. And, I know you can't see the video, but I'm sure you saw it last week anyway, to see all the Red Sox fans standing up. But look, if this was Barry Bonds Jr., hitting a home run as if he's a player, or Will Clark Jr., or whatever, I'm just making up names here, we would do the same thing. It was really, really, really cool to see this happen. And to be number 20, no one had done that since 2015 with Crawford, and now we have Pilar and Yaz doing it in the same year. And who would have thought that coming into this season? I certainly had no idea this was going to happen. But it's a very, very, very special moment. But the reality is, getting back to the game, that put the Giants up 5-1, and you're thinking, all right, the Giants are sitting pretty. Well, no, the Red Sox came back and eventually tied it, and they went to extra innings. And Giants went up 6-5, Red Sox tied it. Giants went up 7-6, and they finally won it in 15. So it was one of those back and forth games, but I thought Bruce Bochy, who we were talking about before, masterfully handled the bullpen, including some very, very quick changes in late innings, which I thought when I was listening to the radio, that's going to burn him in the end, and it didn't. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was so funny. That game took so long. It ended when a normal Giants game ends. I was exhausted. I watched every pitch of that game. I was all in on Yaz's.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was all in on Yaz's trip to Boston. I thought, starting from Yaz and the there's Belt's double. All right, so now we need a Crawford homer. I was all in on the return, and I thought it was cool looking at all the pregame stuff. And then Yaz hits the home run, and during the game, somebody matches a Yaz home run up with his grandfather hitting a home run, and their swing.
I saw that too.
It's the same. Their front foot, it was mesmerizing. I couldn't stop watching it because every time I'd watch it, every 5 times, I'd change what part of the body I was looking at, and it would always be the same. The front foot landed the same and turned the same. The back foot turned the same way. His hips fired through the same way. The bat was the same flatness through the zone. It was just unbelievable. And to see Boston fans knowing they're not making the playoffs, if Boston still didn't have a World Series, they might have acted differently. But being where they are in the position they're in now, they had fun with it. And I really, as a Giants fan, you can't ask for much more for one of your players, for a visiting player. And I found it interesting. Bochy, those moves, he made so many pitching changes in, even the 13th inning, I think it was. There was 4 different pitchers, maybe.
Yeah, that was the one where Bearclaw walked in the winning run with 2 outs.
Okay, so it was the 11th. Yeah,
the tying run with
the 13th inning.
The 13th inning, yeah, with 2 outs.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he went to Bear Claw, it's kind of like, well, who the hell else does he have left anyway? So I kind of get, his selection, but I didn't mind. Again, it was within the rules. This is the last season, tie game. This is the last season that 40-man rosters are available in September. It'll be trimmed to 28 next year. And so Bochy said, screw it. I'm going to play within the rules as much as I can. And, it generally worked out the way he needed it to. Aside from Bear Claw coming in and throwing a wild pitch. But, he went to Derek Rodriguez, who, again, how cool is it? The son of a Hall of Famer was on the mound when the grandson of a Hall of Famer, for that game. That's how it ended with Yastrzemski and Rodriguez out there, which is really kind of cool. And Bochy, it was another chance for Bochy to show how good Bochy is. And like I said, I watched the entire game, and it was with the way the Giants are playing in extra innings this year, even though they blew the lead, I never felt like, oh my God, they're going to lose it here. I never was worried that they were going to give up the home run to lose it or the double to lose it. I don't know why. And I think Bochy's why, and it helped make Yaz Day pretty special that they won.
I agree. In fact, when they went to the Giants went up and they had the bases loaded with 2 outs, I actually thought the Red Sox are actually going to tie this, but they're not going to win it because now I didn't know if the Giants were going to win it later, but I just thought, okay, they're just going to extend this out, and whoever's going to lose is going to be really upset because they have to go another couple innings.
Yep.
And that's what happened. Of course, the Giants did end up proving victorious. D-Rod closed it out. He did allow a couple of runners on in the 15th, and it was a laser beam, by the way, to second base.
Yeah.
It easily could have tied or won the game if it went in the gap. So it was definitely a nail biter, but they won 7-6 with Yaz's great heroics there. So, and of course, it was a Dickerson sacrifice fly in the 15th that proved to be the difference. So Wednesday, that was the game that Bochy won his 2000th. It was an easy win, as you heard in those highlights. He thanked Shark to make it easy. It was 11-3, so it was a blowout. It's crazy, as you put it here. Shark was great, 6 innings pitched, 1 run, and then of course Franco coming in makes the what?
I guess that's supposed to be MLB.
64,
sorry.
right? Yeah, MLB.
Yes.
No, he makes his MLB to close out the year, but it's 64th player to be used by the Giants, which is an NL record. What the heck? But you previewed this last week. In fact, the notes literally say when Franco makes his appearance, his debut, it'll be the record.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the Major League record, but apparently the Mariners have set that this year at 67. So the Giants have the National League record. Yeah. And Anderson Franco is a neat little story. He's a guy who's been in the minors for 8 years. Right. So to think, and I actually tweeted this out, and Anderson Franco, I've learned, is a name searcher because he liked this tweet. I even tweeted out, it's kind of cool when you think about it.
He's a name searcher.
He's a name searcher.
Right, because he didn't add him, so he
right, I didn't.
Yeah.
I added Hunter the other day, but that was because I was having fun with Hunter. Anderson, I was just, making a comment like I would make any other time. Sure. And it's kind of neat to think that Anderson's going to be the last player to ever make his debut under Bochy. There's no new players coming in, if anybody gets hurt. So Anderson is the last player to make his debut under Bochy. Yeah. And he closed out his 2000th win. And I think it was cool. I thought the speech you played, I love, like I said, how Bochy turned it back around on them. The Giants put out about a 1-minute video on Facebook and Twitter and all the places where they also had the speech. And it was really funny because you could see Buster Posey in the background of the speech. At the same time, he was both savoring the scene and listening and paying attention to Bochy, and it just shows how much of an impact Bochy has once again. I really felt like the Giants, they poured it on late. They beat the crap out of the Red Sox relievers. I really felt like they said to themselves, all right, we're going to get him 2,000. We're going to do it right now. We're not going to screw around. 11-3 blowout was their 3rd largest margin of victory on the entire season. So I think they just kind of said, we're going to do this. We're going to take care of you, Skip. And they did. And it got to be an all around good, fun night. It really was. It brought up emotions that I haven't felt since 2014.
It really felt like a playoff game, playoff series. And that was confirmed with the interviews that were played after the series by the morning show, the afternoon show. Hank Schulman, everyone who was there completely agreed. It felt like a playoff series, even though the Red Sox and the Giants were out of it. It was all the pomp and circumstance around Bochy's 2000th, around Yastrzemski's return. It's Fenway Park, for God's sakes. I mean, it's like it's the oldest park now in the major leagues. It was a nice serendipitous confluence of factors coming in. I mean, granted, I think most Giants fans would have loved for Bochy to have won number 2000 at home, but that didn't happen. It's kind of cool that it happened at Fenway Park, Dodger Stadium would have been cool too because it's in the enemy's territory, but at the same time, it's better than like San Diego or Milwaukee or, the Mets. Or Atlanta. Yeah, no, there's something cool about that because it was the connection to the oldest park, to just the history of baseball, to Yaz, to everyone. I thought it was very appropriate if it couldn't be at home. So, and you know what? It's also fitting because the Giants won all 3 World Series on the road as well, and I think that's pretty cool.
True, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, they never could win it at home. All right, so Wednesday, of course, they won their 2000th. Thursday, they lost 5-4. It was a late rally that fell short. Bum was not too sharp. He allowed 5 runs in the first 2 innings. The bullpen did great after that, but nothing happened. But hey, look, they took 2 out of 3 in Boston. Boston's a winning team, so that wasn't anything to shake a stick at. They fly to Atlanta on Friday, and they just fell on their faces. Tyler Beede gave up 6 earned runs in 6 innings, no offense whatsoever. They lost 6-0. Saturday, they lost again 8-1, and I'm thinking now, oh God, they've lost 3 in a row, 5-4, 6-0, 8-1. They've lost 14-1 to Atlanta so far. The Giants, despite that, actually out-hit the Braves 7-5, and the Braves had 2 errors, and the Giants had none. If you were to hide the runs column and just look at hits and errors, and you saw 7-5 in the favor of the Giants and 0-2 in favor of the Giants, you'd think, oh, the Giants probably won that game. They lost 8-1. It wasn't 2-1 or 3-2 or 5-3. It was 8-1. How the hell did that happen, Eric?
Even a hungover Braves team is better than this Giants team.
Seriously, that was insane how that, the other stats are so wonky compared to the final score. But the reality was Johnny Cueto, who was just fantastic in his first 2 starts, 10 innings, no runs, 4 hits. Just solid Cueto. We're thinking, oh my God, 2020, Cy Young, here we go. He lost his control. He just was all over the board. He walked 5 in his 4 innings pitched, was charged with 4 earned runs. D-Rod and Coonrod. I had to write that. D-Rod and Coonrod. They were charged with the other 4, 2 each. But here's how Johnny Cueto's second inning went, in which he gave up his 4 runs. Walk, ground out, walk, double, ground out, walk, double. 4 runs. Boom. That's it.
Walk, yeah.
All 3 walks scored, and the double, of course, scored. So, I mean, he admitted his control was not there. So, it was just a control issue. It wasn't that he got hit hard. They only had 5 hits in 9 innings, and they scored 8 runs. That's crazy. And they had no errors, too. When you look at that, you go, 8 runs on 5 hits. Oh, how many errors did they have? 0? How did they score that? It was.
They took advantage of opportunities. They did.
That's
what Friday and Saturday were. It was a team, a much better baseball team, exerting itself on honestly a weaker opponent. Yeah. And the Giants, they got schooled. They absolutely did. But they bounced back on Sunday, though.
Well, and the Braves clinched the NL East with that win on Friday, that 6-0 win, which. It's not a big deal when the Braves win and the Giants are there. Right. It's whatever. It's their home park that we knew they were going to win. It's better than the Dodgers if they had clinched at Oracle a couple of weeks ago. And then Sunday, like you mentioned. So I'm thinking, okay, they got Beede going Friday. They got Cueto going Saturday. I'm thinking, okay, they should win one of those. They lose both of those. And they got Logan Webb, the rookie, going on Sunday for the sweep. And I'm like, oh, it's over. But you know what I didn't consider was the postseason hangover in the sense of, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Logan Webb, but I should have recognized that it's very often where a team is clinched the next day, they come out flat because they're like, whatever.
But they clinched Friday and they still beat Cueto on Saturday. That's why I thought the Cueto game would be the game they won.
That's true. That's a good point.
So I wouldn't say Logan Webb was fantastic. but the Braves did look like they were good to get out of there. It was not. It was not
That's
their
the
best
vibe
effort.
I got. Yeah, 6 innings for Logan Webb, 2 hits, 2 walks, 1 run. Smith got his 34th save. Longo went 2 for 5 with 2 ribbies. Yaz was 2 for 4. Joey Rickard was 2 for 4 with 2 RBI. And it was Bochy's 2001st win after 3 losses in a row. So Bochy's going like, all right, can I get 2001 here? Just like saying here. But yeah, they went 3-3 on the road trip, so not too bad. And right now they are tied, as I understand it, still 4-4, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-4, top of the 6th, with 1 out and a runner on first, and Madison Bumgarner still pitching. And this is where I was concerned. It's like he came into this game with a 3.8 ERA. It's an out 3.93. If he allows a run here, it might be approaching 4. It's
double play.
Oh, thank you. You're a little ahead of my MLB app.
That's weird. I'm in Georgia.
Well, yeah, internet stuff.
Yeah, that's
technology,
true.
Science. Now it says outs, parentheses.
Yeah. It was Doobie. I love watching Doobie turn a double play. It's so pretty.
He has a 3.92 ERA now after that double play. I assume he's got 88 pitches. Who's due up?
I don't think that matters, though. I think it's the middle of the order. It's like 6 or 7 right now. I think Crawford might be coming to the plate, but I don't think that'll matter. I think Bum will get to hit as long as he wants tonight and on Sunday.
Especially since he has a home run tonight, right? So I think
absolutely.
He'll go at least 1 more inning. He'll go 7 innings or whatever. So anyway, point being, Sunday will be his last start against the Dodgers to close out the season. And that, of course, we talked about it last week. They adjusted the rotation, so he could close out the season with Bochy. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if that, hopefully he finishes the season at an ERA below 4.
He can get under 4, though. He's got the chance, though. He does. If he throws a few shutout innings, he definitely has the chance.
For sure. All right, so let's talk about the MLB playoff race. Clinched in the National League so far, we have in the West the Dodgers, in the East the Braves, and the Cards clinched a playoff spot, but they lead the Brewers by 3 games. So it looks like the Cards are going to be the favorite to win the Central. In the NL wild card, the Nats clinched at least the second wild card tonight. They clinched a playoff spot, essentially. And the Brewers are just behind them. Your wife's Cubs, what the hell happened to them?
They wish they could win 1-run games like the Giants, because they lost 4 games to the Cardinals, each by 1 run. And these weren't just like games where, okay, the Cardinals have 6, the Cubs have 2, they put together 3 late in the game and it ends 6-5. No, these were punch you in the gut, kick you in the scrotum, shove your foot down your throat type losses for the Cubs. It was unbelievable. That team, they came back, they were down 4-1. They came back to tie the game in the 9th off the Cardinals closer. They lose it in the 10th when their closer gives up a home run to Carpenter. It was just, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but it was constantly that kind of thing. The Cubs are done. They are absolutely out of it. They're eliminated, obviously, from the Central, and 1 more loss or 1 more Milwaukee victory, and they'll be eliminated. Milwaukee is basically 1 Diamondbacks and Cubs loss or 1 Milwaukee victory away from clinching the other NL wild card spot, which is just crazy after Yelich went down. They've gone on a tear. They're like 11-4 or 12-4 now since Yelich went down.
No, it's crazy to see Milwaukee's response after Yelich's injury, because they said the earliest he would be back, hypothetically, would be the World Series. So the fact that they've responded and just won like crazy after he went down is insane. So it's almost guaranteed now that it's going to be the Nats and the Brewers. It doesn't matter who's home, to be honest. I mean, it's 1 game, right? I mean, one game. It's like the Giants have done that twice on the road, and they've won both in 2014 and 2016. So the Giants have been there, and Madison Bumgarner pitched both games, and they won both in New York and in Pittsburgh. So I'm not going to put any credence into either one, so I don't care. But the fact of the matter is the Nats or the Brewers are going to be facing the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And I personally, despite the Brewers' hot streak, I personally hope for the Nats. What do you think?
I agree. I think the Nats are the best chance to get LA out in the first round. And I think Atlanta might be the best chance to get them out in the second round. But,
Yeah.
I mean, that's discounting St. Louis. And I've learned over the past couple weeks to not discount St. Louis.
My good Dodger friend from CrossFit, and if you look at the stats, it's absolutely solid. He does not want to face the Cardinals. The Cardinals are the Dodgers' Achilles heel. So I totally am fine with that. But prior to that, let's just have the Nats or the Brewers beat them. That would be great. Let's stop this whole going to the World Series thing and going to 5 or 7 games. I don't want to live with that. I can't live with the Dodgers winning a World Series.
I didn't expect the Nats or the Brewers to be in this position.
Well, you're right about that.
Yeah, months ago I might have expected the Brewers, but not the Nats. The Nats didn't start off this season so well. There was talk about Davey Martinez losing his job, and they're going to win 90 games and probably host the wild card. And they have their own hurdle to get over. They've never won a first-round series. They've been in the first round, I want to say, 4 times, and they've lost every one of those series.
Yeah.
So they've never gotten over
like
that
the
hump.
A's.
Right, so they're going to be answering questions like that leading up to it if they, get into it, But I can get behind the Nats. I can get behind the Brewers. I can even get behind the Cards as much as I hate the Cards.
Whoever's going to win.
I'm with you. I don't care. I don't have to do the chop, but if the chop beats them, that's fine.
Yeah. By the way, after 87, the Giants love the Cardinals in the playoffs. So clinching in the AL. You have the Yankees in the East, the Astros in the Central, and the Twins have a 4-game lead on the Indians with 6 to play. That was prior to the play tonight. So let's just assume the Twins are winning the Central because that's almost mathematically impossible.
Yeah, 2 is their magic number.
Yeah. So in the AL wild card, the A's lead the Lays, lead the Rays. That'd be awesome. Wow. Sounds like a horrible Chinese kung fu flick there. The A's lead the Rays by 1.5 games. The Indians are a half game back of the Rays. So that's really the only race that's going on right now, Eric. I mean, it's going to be most likely the A's in the 1 or 2 seed. So it really comes down to the Indians or the Rays in the number 2 seed, probably. But other than that, I don't think there's any, surprises coming. Just one of those 3 teams is going to be out. And that's about it.
Yeah, these races suck this year, to be honest.
They do.
The wild card, is the only thing keeping races alive. Thankfully, in the National League, if we still had 1 wild card, they would be fighting for that 1 wild card. But here in the American League, Oakland has a 1.5 game lead on Tampa. And if Oakland wins tonight, that becomes a 2-game lead for them to get home field for it. And they're up 2-0 right now. And threatening. So Oakland, Tampa, Cleveland, I guess, is the race here. And I mean, Minnesota, who knew they would be so well? 97 wins. I didn't think they would be that good. They got a young manager, Rocco Baldelli's younger than I am. He's in his late 30s. I didn't expect that kind of a immediate pop from the lineup. I mean, they set the Major League record for home runs in a season. They have 5 guys who've hit over 30 home runs. It's ridiculous. And they're not even the best team in the American League. But there's no race. There's no real race. Boston's 81 and 75. If they were over in the National League, they'd be in the middle of a race right now.
Yeah.
But because the American League sucks at the bottom with, Seattle, Toronto, Kansas City, Baltimore, Detroit, the top half feeds off that. And so that's why we have 93, 95. I mean, the wild card teams are going to have 96, 97 wins in the American League.
Yeah, there's 3 American League teams with 100 losses. I mean, that's awful.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, and then, of course, only 1 in the National League, and that's all it's going to be. But American League, 3 teams. And, of course, Kansas City could lose up to 99 or 98, so hypothetically speaking. But it's rough. But, we've had some incredible races in the past. I was watching MLB.com and MLB Channel. They had the whole countdown of they've been in existence for 10 years now, the MLB network. And they profiled their top 10 MLB finishes basically for the playoffs. Not into the playoffs, but the actual to the playoffs. The Giants were like number 4, and that was the Padres and Giants in 2010. Yeah, they came down because they were 5 games back with like 10 games to play, and they ended up tying the Padres, and of course won in the final game of the year. So they made number 4, which is really cool to see. Actually, I didn't know they were going to make it that high, but there was some crap that went down in the number 1, 2, and 3 that I totally forgot about. All the game 163s, all the double playoffs. Like the wild card has definitely done some really cool stuff in the past. Don't get me wrong, as a baseball fan, but this year, yeah, it's a boring year. It's no one's fault, just the way the numbers line up.
Yeah, it really is, and there's nothing you can do about that. Yeah. But, I don't have a horse in the American League. I expect the Astros and Yankees to meet in the ALCS, and they might have an epic 7-game series just like a couple years ago before the Astros beat the Dodgers.
Well, we lament that the Giants, when they won 103 games in 1993, didn't even make the playoffs, despite having the second best record in all of baseball. But that's because that was before the wild card, and the Braves, of course, had 104 wins and took that mantle. But this year, we already have Houston and New York Yankees at 102 wins. So unless they fall on their faces, they're going to have more than 103 wins this year. Both teams are going to have more than 103. And what's notable about that is that only one, if none of them, are making the World Series. So, I mean, to be honest, if I'm a Yankees or Astros fan and I don't make the World Series and I have 105 wins, 106 wins, I'm pretty pissed.
Yeah.
So, good competition in the American League. But like you said, that's a byproduct of the horrible teams at the very bottom. There's much more of a dichotomy, much more of a spread in wins. I mean, look at Detroit. 46 wins, Eric. 46. Houston and New York have 102. That's more than double. More than double. They have a 29.5% winning percentage. That's just 110 losses. Unbelievable.
God, that's stupid bad. That's not losing one of every 3. That's losing one of every 4.
They're almost
there. I mean, winning one of every 4. Yeah.
Yeah, almost there. Oh, my God. I know. So bad. So, the rich get richer, the poor get poor. All right,
we'll preview. I was gonna say we'll preview when we know the teams next week. We'll preview and make our picks, which mine haven't been too good the last couple of years. So I'll try to put some thought into it this year because I know my season's picks are probably not panning out.
I know I did well last year, but we'll see how this year goes. So I love playoff baseball. Even when the Giants are in it, obviously when the Giants are in it, I take more Xanax and anti-anxiety meds. But when they're not in it, I get a little bit more enthralled from like a fantasy point of view, kind of like, oh, I hope this team wins, and like, if they lose, it's not eviscerating, it's not demoralizing. I don't want to curl up in a ball and cry myself to sleep. It's different, but exhilarating in the same way. So let's talk about who's hot in the last week.
Yeah, let's rip through who's hot and who's not real quick here. Excuse me. Over the last week, I got to tell you, it was hard to find who's hot. Despite them going 3-3 on this road trip, the 3 guys that I have on the list are the only 3 guys that hit over 300. Yaz went 429 over the past week. He was 9 for 21, 3 doubles, a homer, and he scored 5 runs. And I don't know, something about going to Boston clicked it in for him. Even when he pinch hit late in the 3rd game, first pitch, he stroked a single out to left field, and he seemed to have his like full-on good swing working again. So Yaz had a great week. The homer was the highlight of it all. Christian Adames, surprise, he went 6 for 12 this past week and drove in a couple runs, although all 6 hits were singles. He spelled Longo at third for a game or 2, and I think he played second one of the games.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Go ahead.
That's all right. And Joey Rickard, I found it interesting that you mentioned Rickard in the Sunday game. Joey Rickard went 400 on this road trip. Yeah. He was 4 for 10 with a double and 2 RBIs. His double, I remember too, was in the middle of, I think, some run scoring in the Boston series. So, he stepped it up because other than that, the list, like I said, everybody hit like like 250 or worse. I've got it on Who's Not. Doobie had his first rough go of it over the past week. He was 4 for 26 on the road trip, which was only 154. Austin Slater, he's also had a rough go of it lately. He was only 3 of 16 on the road trip, which makes out to 188. And Longo, despite chipping in, and he always seems to do this, even when Longo has a bad week, he'll have a game where he chips in some things. Right. And he did it again the other day. But he only was 4 for 20 on the road trip. He only hit 200. So the Giants were not tearing up the world while they were going 3 for 3. They it looks like they averaged out mediocre. So there wasn't a lot to really pull off this week.
Yeah, sorry about that sound. It was Bumgarner hitting his home run this game. I won't replay it right now. The Giants are still tied 4-4. So injuries, no injuries to report, no transactions this week, which is very unusual, but it is the end of the year, so not so unusual because we do have the expanded roster right now. Minor league report, we have Sacramento. We reported last week they won the PCL championship. They were going to go play Columbus in the National AAA Championship. And what's really funny about this whole thing is that it's not a best of 3 or best of 5 or best of 7. It's just one game.
Yeah.
Just one game. And I find that hilarious. I mean, it's like, it's a coin flip at that point. It's like, all right, sure, let's just flip a coin. Don't even play the game. Let's just flip a coin. You call it.
I don't remember who started for Sacramento because it was only his second start for Sacramento all year. And they won on a shutout. And I read somewhere that they used to do a best of 5, but because the minor league season's so long and because some of these organizations want to get their guys to the fall league, they decided to just do the one game so that they didn't have to drag it out and they didn't have to worry about travel and all those extra stuff. So like you said, they flip a coin to win the national championship.
Yeah, quote unquote. I mean,
yeah,
could you imagine the World Series, like the NL champ and the AL champ meeting in a neutral, quote unquote, neutral location and just playing one game for the World Series? I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, so, even though Sacramento won 4-0, like you said, it was a guy's second start of the year. It's like that's never going to happen in real baseball. Half of their team was up with the Giants anyway. I mean, it's just like, you just kind of go, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. All right, whatever. Like, when I played in amateur ball and we won 2 championships, I actually think that's more impressive than what they did. Only because we stayed as a team the whole year, right? Like, we tried and we had a 3-game series for the championship and a 3-game series in the semifinals. It just seems like this is just let's just play a game and okay, everybody move on.
Sacramento had 119 transactions this year.
Oh my God.
119. I mean, you don't have a real sense of team. There's some guys, Okert closed out the game, and he's one of the rare guys that spent the entire season with Sacramento.
Right.
But, a bunch of these guys, they were there for bits of time.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because, like, when I've played and won championships, we play with the same team the entire year, minus one or two guys who were hurt or whatever. But there wasn't transactions. There wasn't a lower league or a higher league. But, when you get into professional baseball, that's a completely different story. So I get it. And it must be weird because there's going to be a core group of guys who have been there most of the year who are like, yay! But there's going to be some periphery guys who are like, I was here for 5 games, and guys who were there most of the year who either released, demoted, or moved up to the Giants, and it's a different animal. So, but anyway,
Jalen Miller summed it up best. He played for Richmond this year, but he was on the roster for Sacramento winning the championship. His Instagram post is of him holding the trophy with the beer and whatnot splashing around him, and his quote was, "When you don't participate in the group project, but you still get an A."
That's awesome.
Because that's what it is. He didn't do a damn thing.
Awesome. He didn't do a damn thing. Oh my God, that's great.
It's so true. It's so true.
All All right.
So this week in Giants history, let's talk about actual championship teams that were together for a while. It's the last week of the season. As an aside, Bumgarner got through the 7th with no runs, so his ERA went down. This is the week of clinches. It's the last week of the season, and divisional play has only been around since 1969. So I thought I'd take a look at and quickly run through the dates and how the Giants clinched every single one of their division titles. It's really not that many. There's only 7 division titles that the Giants have had since divisional play started 50 years ago. Wow, I can't believe I just said that. 50 years ago. 1971, they won their first division title, but it took them till game 162, and they had to beat the Padres 5-1 on the final day of the season, and they beat the Dodgers by 1 game. 90-72 was their record in 1971, so that was not a strong year for the National League West. In 1987, the improbable 1987 team, they clinched on Monday, September 28th, game 156 of the season. They beat the Padres 5-4. It put them up 7 games on the Reds with 7 games up on the Reds with 6 to play. So it clinched the division. Don Robinson was the hero of the game. Dave Dravecky started for the Giants in that 1987 clincher. The Padres put together a rally in the 9th inning, but they were able to quell it when John Kruk, I did say it right, hit a fly out to Jeffrey Leonard, who caught at the warning track to end the game. And it's funny because in that game for the Padres, Dave Dravecky struck out one Bruce Bochy.
No way.
Yeah, in the Giants clinching game. Yeah, I thought that was a neat little nugget. Bruce Bochy. He's been around for Giants clinches for years. In 89, they didn't clinch till game 159. They actually didn't clinch on the field. The Giants were in Los Angeles, and the title was actually clinched when the Padres lost to the Reds in 13 innings. The Giants lost their game to L.A. that night, but they were up 5 with 5 to go, and they needed to win 1 of 2 or have the Padres lose 1 of 2, and they did. And the Giants ended up with a 92-70 record again, plus 3 over the Padres. Wow, a lot of 90 and 92 win seasons. It's like the Giants snuck in there in down years for the NL West. Thank God for our championships. 97, we all remember the Brian Johnson game, but they clinched against the Padres actually in a 6-1 victory on September 27th, 97, the second to last day of the season. JT Snow had a 2-run double, and Wilson Alvarez threw 7 shutout innings. Wilson Alvarez.
Oh my God, blast from the past.
Yeah, that was the white flag trade. And being from Chicago, that's what it was called, because the White Sox sent all their good players to the Giants, and they were only 3.5 back in their race. So they called it the white flag trade in Chicago, and it helped the Giants win the division. And that's as far as they got in 1997, eventually losing to the world champion Marlins.
Yep.
2000, they opened up, what the hell was it called? Pac Bell Park. And this is their second to earliest clinch. Yeah, second to earliest clinch. They clinched in game 152. So with 10 games left in the season, the Giants were 11 better than the Dodgers. And they won 97 games in the year 2000. They beat the Diamondbacks 8-7. They clinched at home. Felipe Crespo single home Ellis Burks for the insurance run that ended up being the game winner. And I stood on the table at a bar and screamed my head off wearing Giants jersey in suburban Chicago.
Nice.
Yeah, I was newly 21, so what can you do? In 03, they clinched early as well, and I believe we've talked about 02, they were a wild card team. 03, which I think is the best Giants team of our generation.
By far.
They won 100 games. Yeah, they won 100 games. They were 15.5 games better than the Dodgers. They beat the Padres 8-3 to win the division. Galarraga smacked a 2-run homer. Grissom hit a 2-run homer. Jason Schmidt threw 7 innings and 11 strikeouts. Everybody did their part. That was, game 150. So they had 11 games that they played that were meaningless in the year 2003. God, that was such a good team.
Yeah.
And then their most recent and final division title was I'm sorry, I'm missing one. They won in game 162, as you just referenced, in 2010.
Yep.
Right. And then last week, I think I talked about them clinching the division in 2012. And looking at the list that I have, I forgot about that one. So this is the week of clinches. So actually, it's eight division titles in 50 years for the Giants.
Yeah.
This is the week that they do it. Yeah, which is why it's surprising all these other teams we talked about clinched so early.
All right, so this is the final homestand for the San Francisco Giants. They are playing 3 against Colorado right now. They're tied 4-4 in the 7th. Then they have 3 against LA, and that'll be Bruce Bochy's final game. So we'll talk about that next week in episode 182. As I noted before, I will be attending tomorrow night's game, as in the capacity of press, but also with sports hosts in terms of their party. So come on, join us. Have some fun. We'll have some shots of whiskey. We'll do whatever. I'll buy you a shot. We'll do whatever. I'm just saying.
$9 bleacher tickets. Jump on it.
Yeah,
it's easy.
$9
if I was there,
bleacher
I'd be
tickets.
there.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I know Eric would be there, but he has to fly across country, so that's not going to happen. But check us out. We're the unofficial official podcast of the San Francisco Giants. Hey, we're trying. All right. Okay, so that's going to do it for episode 181 of the Torchcast. You can follow us collectively at Torchcast. You can check out our podcasts and blog at torchcast.com, or follow us individually at ChadK21 for myself, at 2 Out Hits for Eric. That's with the number 2. Anything else, Eric, that you have?
Just a note, Buster Posey and Bumgarner have now homered in 3 games. They've both homered in 3 games at the same time. It ties a major league record set by 3 other pitchers and catchers.
Oh.
So maybe next Sunday they can break that record. I just thought that was interesting. It came across as the game. It's still
now
4-4
you've put pressure all on the battery, mate. They gotta.
Maybe they can do it on Sunday against the Dodgers scrubs.
All right, so maybe I'll ask them that tomorrow night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, make sure. Yeah,
no, I'm not asking them that. This is, that's the problem. This is the time of the year where it's softball questions, right? It's not hardcore questions. No, it's like, do you like chocolate or vanilla? Yeah, not going there. So anyway. Okay, so for Eric, this is Chad signing off for episode 181. We'll see you in the season review, episode 182 next Monday. Until then, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torturecast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at Torturecast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.